The unification of Upper and Lower Egypt likely became a reality because of the practical need to control and manage the irrigation of the Nile River. This pattern, where cooperation over water leads to greater political organization, has repeated itself many times throughout history. Imagine trying to use a river to power a mill, only to have someone upstream divert or dam the water for their own use. Without cooperation, life along the river becomes unstable and even dangerous, especially for those downstream. In such situations, societies are forced to work together, and that necessity often leads to the creation of stronger political institutions. Egypt offers a clear example of how geography shapes history. By around 3300 BCE, two distinct kingdoms had emerged along the Nile, Upper Egypt in the south and Lower Egypt in the north. Around 3100 BCE, these two kingdoms were unified under the ruler of Upper Egypt. Archaeological evidence from this period includes a famous stone object known as the Narmer Palette, which commemorates this unification. The palette depicts the king, known to the Egyptians as Narmer and later to the Greeks as Menes, wearing the white crown of Upper Egypt on one side and the red crown of Lower Egypt on the other, symbolizing his authority over both lands. Unification was easier to achieve in Egypt than in many other early civilizations because Egyptian society was highly concentrated along the Nile, usually within a narrow strip of land roughly 5 to 15 miles wide. This concentration made governance more manageable and reduced the challenges of administering distant regions. Trade and communication were also simplified by the Nile itself, which served as a natural highway for the entire kingdom. Goods could easily be floated northward with the river's current, while prevailing winds made it possible to sail southward against the flow. In effect, the Nile functioned as Egypt's primary, and often only, road system. The unification of Egypt marks the beginning of what historians call the historic period. Before this point, our knowledge of Egypt comes mostly from archaeology and legend, meaning the evidence is incomplete and fragmented. One way to think about this early period is as a fishing net. The strands represent what we know, while the holes represent what remains unknown. Following unification, the historical record becomes far more detailed. The Egyptians were intensely concerned with memory and record-keeping, and later, Greek and Roman conquerors made deliberate efforts to preserve Egyptian inscriptions and documents. Based on these records, ancient and modern historians have divided Egyptian history into roughly 30 dynasties, or ruling families. The names of individual rulers and the lengths of their reigns were carefully recorded. Modern historians often group these dynasties into broader periods, the Predynastic period, the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom, and the New Kingdom, to make Egyptian history easier to study. The ancient Egyptians themselves, however, thought about their past primarily in terms of dynasties, not periods. For them, history was a succession of royal lineages, each linking divine authority, political power, and the continuity of the Egyptian state.